Back to the Engine Performance Expo, our first roundtable of Friday, and the roundtables have been epic, one of my favorite parts. And look, we have got a full house here, Lake. Martin joining the table from Performance Plus, Randy Neal from CVT, of course Billy is back, Ben, he's been here the whole ride. I'm just now getting used to being around Ben, which is great. And Ed Kiebler from Rottler in the house. Thank you guys for Rottler for supporting the whole deal. Lake, we've got a lot of brain power here. We're going to talk about kind of a tough and challenging subject.
Well, so technology has advanced so much. We've gone over it and said it again and again and again the last 2 days. So what we want to try to do is get together kind of a plethora of different perspectives on what is the technology that's evolving and changing. What are the things that we need to be thinking about? So kind of looking more ahead of, okay, what are the technologies that you need to put your money on, right? If there's a horse in this race, where do you need to put your focus? I mean, they had it up there on the table throughout all the sessions, that profilometer. We're talking about surface finish in Billy's thing earlier. So I'm a big proponent of surface finish because I've seen how much it's changed. And of course, your products are the ones that create a lot of that surface finish.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, talk about a little bit about what's evolved and changed in abrasives.
Well, through my 38-year career, 33 years of it was spent with one of the leading abrasive manufacturers in the country. And whenever I had to reinvent myself 5 years ago, I saw the writing on the wall several years ago with my base accounts, be it camshaft, crankshaft, lifter body, push rods, all that. I saw where it was going. So here I am, December 19th of 2016, trying to reinvent the wheel, basically. So I thought, you know what? We need to go with super abrasives. Cubic boron nitrate CBN and polycrystalline diamond PCD. That's where the market is. That's where you get your best bang for your buck, even though it's expensive. In the big picture of it, that's where you gain your advantages with super abrasives. I still have a stone line or a ceramic bonded line, and there are still avenues for that. But for the high production, high performance type market, and guys that are really quality minded, they need to go to like the super abrasive products. And I've reinvented all those typical valve refacer wheels that go on those grinders. And the first hurdle that I had to overcome was, how do I dress it? How do you dress a hard CBN wheel? Well, I had to develop it.
How do you do that, by the way?
And it was tough. It wasn't something that come easy. My first stab at it was in 2008, and I failed. And you always fail when you're developing things. So I didn't really have time to spend a lot more time on the project. So fast forward to 2017, bam, I started looking at it.
It became more important.
It became more important because I saw the writing on the wall about super abrasives. So I started developing the products, and it's like, you know what? It was like 3 days before PRI 2019. I had here's UPS coming up the drive. So his hand to my grinder, it was that quick, and I saw the benefits of it that day. And I sent one of my other test wheels over to Missouri to get it tested as well, because he was coming to PRI. Well, I was just ecstatic with the results that I was getting, because all through my career with my previous employer, that's what I did, was research and development for the auto and diesel engine rebuilding market, trying to make user-friendly products. Well, it helped me because I ran my own shop, and I still do today. I started my shop in 1988, so I'm able to do all in-house testing. So I can do a lot of that, except crank and cam, and I use some people that's close to me for crank and cam. So I saw the benefits of it, and it's like, you know what, I'm going full steam ahead on this. Along with my inserts, the CBN and PCD inserts for all the popular CBN mill applications in the country. But super abrasives is really, that's where it's at.
Define the advantages of super abrasives.
The advantages is...
Because Ed and I talked about this a lot at the track when honing. Between conventional and the super abrasives, the cost per block over time is like ridiculously.
It is. It's just unreal, the benefits that's applied to it. And Billy can chime on this as well, because years past I had CBN wheels on his Kuma grinders down there, as well as Bullet and other companies around the country, because the round shaft accounts was my baby. That was my baby. That's why I flew all over the country and had a Holiday Inn Express club points.
Exactly, yeah.
And I was telling the guy, I said, that's why I got 700,000 club points.
Right,
because
yeah,
I
exactly,
traveled all over. But they see the benefits of it as well as crank accounts and stuff like that. But it really revolutionized camshaft grinding.
So longevity of the part.
Yeah, the longevity and cost per part
Yep.
is it's just tremendous. It's just off the charts. And that's the same thing with the CBN valve refacers. I mean, when you can go hundreds in grinding titanium valves without a dress, no changing wheels out. You can put tie in there, you can put Inconel in there, you can put stainless in there, and all the OE junk that you can throw at it. So that's the benefit that I see of it, and I've got many happy customers out there because now they're seeing the benefit of it. It's the pain of paying for it, but after you pay for it, it's almost a lifetime product.
Right. Now, is it part of that lifetime of that, or the length of dress, is that because it doesn't wear out as much, Billy?
Yeah, I mean,
you're cutting camshafts, so you're having to see what's going on.
Yeah, there's a real thing that you have to kind of change. There's a perspective change you have to make with tooling. When you're not dressing as often, that means you're holding geometry better. So when you're doing this valve, but can you imagine, you've been around Ron and Scooter a whole lot in your life.
Yep.
When they're used to spending $150 to $300 for a grinding wheel, and you tell them you're about to spend $3,000 to $5,000 for a grinding wheel,
there it is.
If you wanted a good way to get a beating,
right,
like
Billy, I always tell them to sit down first before I get
this is going to hurt, but then you just have to change your perspective because you're really not buying a grinding wheel. I'm not buying a grinding wheel. I'm buying cams per wheel.
Yes.
How many camshafts can I grind out of this one grinding wheel?
Yep.
And I mean, when those $100 wheels, we were changing them every day. A good, when you talk about a really good CBN grinding wheel, you're talking about something that can grind 35 to 50, 70 cams per dress. Not only that, each lobe on that camshaft is going to look identical.
Right.
It's not breaking down. And the camshaft that your 10th camshaft, we do it, every 5 camshafts, we'll do the 1st cam, 5th cam, 10th cam, 15th, and go through there, and we look at how the dress progresses throughout. And that's when we know when to dress. It's not because it still won't hold tolerance. It's the dress has changed, so the underlying surface has changed. But we're looking at that. But it's a very much, if you start looking at your price per tool, and this goes through any manufacturing process, you will really, really put yourself in a corner. You've got to look at your your tooling cost per part. We see it when we hob gears on camshafts. We see it in the turning. We see it in everything we do. You've got to stop looking at tooling cost as an absolute, and you start looking at your tooling cost per part.
Labor.
Yeah.
The labor involved.
Changing.
Yes.
Anytime you change.
All the labor involved in changing.
Shipping.
Changing out a wheel like that, getting it redressed with a rotary dresser.
Well, it takes time.
There's so many things involved.
These rotary dressers take time to dress too.
Absolutely.
People are never paying me to dress my wheel. They're paying me to grind their camshaft.
Right. And that's
so
the
when I'm
same
taking
thing
time, on whether you're doing a valve or anything like that, looking tooling, and a per part cost on tooling, definitely changes it, because that $3,000 to $5,000 wheel costs less per part. Each camshaft has about 10 cents worth of grinding wheel in it.
Yeah.
And it might have 15 cents worth of grinding wheel in it if I'm buying a $150 wheel. It might have 10 cents per grinding wheel. So I've taken a guy who's fallen out of his chair because I'm going to take this $150 part and buy a $3,000 part. And now I'm telling him, you're saving 50%.
Yeah.
Billy, my inside sources are telling me that you actually ordered the parts prior to revealing the cost.
So it was
is this in fact true? Is this true?
Confession time. Come on.
So this is the problem about being live.
I don't want to tell you who the source is until after you answer the question.
There's something that in the tooling industry called proof of performance. And so if you actually buy something, like you're an engineer like me, and you sign the thing to order something, if you ordered on proof of performance, you tell your boss, I didn't really buy it. I only bought it if it works. And then they go, well, when are you going to budget that? And you go, we'll talk about that later.
Right. Well, that was Scooter.
Yep.
So,
Surprise.
Surprise.
Scooter, it was proof of performance. I didn't really buy it. Yeah.
Didn't he say when he was here last time, sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission?
yeah,
That's right.
He did
And
say that.
Mark Cronquist, who is out there right now enjoying the round table, said to Scooter, it's always better to ask forgiveness, right? Like for permission.
There you go.
All kinds of theories just being reinforced here.
Well, Ed, I mean, that was, we talked about that at the different Trackside Tech Talks. What's
Yes.
that differential in cost?
Yes. I mean, Martin hit it, and Billy both. I mean, it's absolutely correct, and it holds true even in the honing business. You know, a typical standard abrasive, if you're honing 3 thousandths out of a V8 block, is going to cost you about $2.50 per block. A diamond abrasive will cost you a nickel per block.
Right.
Now, as you said, the initial cost will
be shocking.
Will shock you.
Yeah.
But your price per part is minuscule compared to standard abrasives.
I think there's another component there too, though, Ed, and that is like the skill level and the usability of the operator of the machine. Because, for example, when I first bought my Rottler hone, I'd never honed a block in my life, and I'd certainly never done it with a CNC hone. But not having to have all this knowledge and skill of like, well, you got to watch that vitrified stone, and when it starts wearing out, like I didn't know anything about that. But having diamonds in there, I just press the button, and so from a cost perspective to train my user, whether that's me or an employer or whatever, it was a lot simpler to make that transition. So I think having the diamonds was a big help in that too. I didn't have to worry about my stones wearing out because I'm going to mow through blocks like crazy and not have to replace that.
And the ability to be consistent, get a consistent results. Same thing in honing as it is in grinding camshafts.
It wasn't that you couldn't get the consistent result in the old days with the stones, but it required so much more skill of the operator that, you know, he'd been doing this for 20 years, and, you know, the young guy comes in and he would go, well, you just kind of got to know what to do. And I go, well, how do you get there from zero? Right? And so...
How do you know the sound in the field?
Exactly.
You've got,
What's
it's
a feeler
all
gauge supposed to
touch,
feel like?
feel, sound.
Right.
And a CBN wheel has a totally different sound than a vitrified wheel.
Sure.
Or a vitrified hone versus a diamond hone.
Yeah.
So it's all in touchy feel on these manual grinders because naturally that's what everybody has is a manual grinder.
Right.
And that's what I tell them. I'm like, you're going to go through a learning curve, just like with anything you do that's new. You're going to go through a learning curve, and then once you get past the pain of purchasing it, you're going to look back and say, I should have done this 10 years ago if it was available.
Yeah. So I think about that perspective, Martin, of like the younger new generation that's coming in and skipping that whole process.
I think they have a better handle hold and understand it a little better because the old hat of the old regime have a tough time paying up for a product like that.
That's not the thing we've always done.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's not the thing that they've always done. It's not what they were ever taught.
Yeah.
But it's. I think some of those younger generations with their older fathers running the shop, I think those younger generation are getting their fathers to think in a different manner.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, because time is money.
Yeah.
And if you're not grinding and you're dressing, you're not making any money.
Yeah. If you're changing parts, you're just not making money.
Exactly.
That reminds me of a great Doug Yates story where he talks about, you know, getting out of college and coming back and working with his dad, and, you know, we put this engine on the dyno, we run it, and he goes, all right, you know, I want to go change this jet and put that part in, and his dad's like, why? That's the only engine we got. Put it in the car. We're going to go race with it. And he was like, no, we got to do it differently, you know. And you look at what they had back then versus what they've become now because of that different thought process, you know. And,
oh, sure, that's a good example right there.
You know, just the young guy saying, wait a minute, there's got to be a different way we can do this. And so sometimes not having all that prior experience ends up being an advantage rather than holding somebody back, you know, because they can step back and say, what's the fastest and easiest way for me to get there? If I'm going to invest in a wheel or a machine or whatever, I want to be able to get going and make results fast, you know.
With my past history of my previous supplier, it's like I went to grinding wheel and cutting tool technology for 33 years.
Right.
And I compounded that by having my own machine shop, doing blocks and heads and stuff, and I still do. So in learning the industry with everything that everybody was learning on advancing their technology, and we were heavily into super abrasives and diamond and stuff like that. And I could just see that. I could see that train a coming, and it's like, okay, I'm always thinking in the shop, what can I do better here? What tool can I develop to make this less of a hectic job? Ring grinding. Okay, I put diamond ring wheels on ring grinders. That makes them a top fueler, buddy.
Yes.
And it makes them a top fueler, and it makes a grunge job so much easier.
So much easier.
And it cuts time, and it's just one of those things that makes it a joy to cut rings. Because now it's not so grunge.
A dummy like me can even do it.
Well, we'd have to show you how.
There are people who, by choice, they learn to make fire with sticks. Right?
They rub.
But most people use a lighter. And it's just a piece of technology. You could go back but thinking about, like, do we all need to learn how to make fire with sticks? Well, maybe we don't, right? And I think that's just the way technology causes convenience and allows us to not even worry about how we're going to make our next fire. We worry about how to grill our next amazing steak, right? And I think that's happening here. Randy, what about in your field in that, with balancing, computers, like what has been the bit of technology that has thrust your industry forward?
Well, let me group all of this together because we talk about hardware changes, we're talking about procedures, we're talking about the change. In other words, this industry, and in fact, the Engine Performance Expo, this whole gig is all about bringing the awareness to the forefront for everybody, old and young. And the unique part of what our program here consists of is experts in every field are going to be presented in the future. So staying within the scope of balancing, we measure energy. That's a little hard to do, but actually we've got it because of computers and software. It's a no-brainer. We can do, for instance, in honing, we got measuring equipment that we can now bonify exactly the targets that we want, the RA, the RPKs. Now this translates into a better product with, believe it or not, less skill. In other words, there's more automation and population, if you will. We have technicians, the young guys just eat this stuff up. That's all about. Now, some of us gray hairs, well, we're on the backside of this thing, and these young punks are coming up.
Touch screens are easier than dials.
For me, my young punk is, come here, son. Take a look at this.
Well, that's the whole deal. This is, our industry has to go to next generation for us to prosper. Bottom line. Well, guess what? We got some really cool tools. We got the technical expertise now to present it in an arena like this that I think is just very much welcomed. And now the one thing about it again is that this is a global expansion. EPE is the format structure for the future for technical knowledge, and also because we have experts on the field, we can bring the latest right now. And this is a moving target. That's what this whole program is about. This thing, what we did yesterday, okay, I'm good. I got some knowledge. But what am I going to do tomorrow? Well, that's what we're all about here. So if I can simply add that to the merit of this program, we want people to really tune in, to understand, boy, you need to be looking for this channel every chance you get for new topics. I think you'll be surprised.
Well, I think about the grinding and relating it back to when we did the balancing for the Engine Performance Expo engine, is that, hey, we didn't put more holes in the crank intentionally. Let's not drill more holes and make it Swiss cheese. Let's actually grind it. So now using super abrasives, now we can control that remove. We can do that job faster. We can make sure the surface finish is correct, even though on a counterweight doesn't really matter, I guess. But
actually, everything that you do on that counterweight, you got to understand, counterweights have three functions. The primary function is to offset piston rod assembly. Pretty common knowledge. But the second side of it is that it's a structural integrity to the shaft. It makes the shaft stronger, right? But it does one more thing. As we start to drill holes into it, we start changing the resonant frequency of that counterweight. In other words, it'll sit there during cycle time, and it'll sit there and become live, quiver, if you will. Now listen, everything that happens to that crank is related to the rest of the engine. I keep saying this, it goes right up to the wing nut to the oil pan. So if everything becomes unstable, this young man here goes and develops the perfect cam profile. The other people have the perfect roller system. They got rockers, everything's fine. You excite that, and all of a sudden that valve tip is outside of the original intent of design. Fair enough? So it's not the big things we're changing. Matter of fact, we can make horsepower top ring up. We agree? Okay. What we're after now is stability and unleashing power. That's really where we're headed now. Everything we do and all this new technology is taking the parasitic loss and taking it out of the equation. That's where our true net horsepower is showing up now.
We saw some things in our industry where, if you look at what Diamond Piston started, that was the idea of making the dome of the piston stiffer, even if it was a little bit heavier, because pistons were getting lighter. Bob Fox went, hold on, this thing's flexing. If I can make it stiffer, the combustion, my compression ratio will stay there, it'll get better. I think what we saw was the same thing on the crankshafts. We saw them get lighter. Now we're understanding that all the bending and torsionals and all the flexing, everything. We joked about, we had dinner with Mark, and he was in there. They were at this conference, and every time somebody did, they go, "Well, it was harmonics. It's harmonics." And then they go, "Mark, what do you think?" He goes, "Well, I think when people don't understand what's going on, they say it's harmonics."
That's good.
That said, when you're dealing with valve train and crankshafts, you're very much in the frequency realm.
Right.
Everything has an order that it wants to vibrate at.
Right.
Whenever you have a F equal KX, anything with stiffness, push rod, crankshaft, whatever, it has a natural resonant frequency. If you hit it with a hammer, it'll ring at a certain frequency. Then you have all these drive frequencies as everything does it. It's what goes on with the crankshaft is transmitted through the timing set to the camshaft.
Yes, sir.
So if you say everything makes power above the piston ring, how the crankshaft that you balance rotates in the engine changes how the valves are going to move.
Right.
And as a camshaft guy, I would love to tell you that camshafts make power. But honestly, the engine doesn't care in the least what the camshaft looks like. It cares how this valve opens and closes and moves. I'm grinding the camshaft trying to tell it how I want you to move. It doesn't respond to what I want. It responds to what it does. So I need the crankshaft, the lower end system, to be in control for me to have any chance to keep the valve train system in control.
Yeah, how many times have you changed the shape of your camshaft grind because the engine wasn't doing what you wanted it to, so you had to change what you were telling it to do,
No, we've talked about this before. Like in Competition Eliminator, you'll see some of the Comp Eliminator cars will be a pro stock car that they just put a plate over one set, put a flat crank in it, and run the exact same cylinder head, header, everything like that in a 4-cylinder, 250-inch 4-cylinder instead of a 500-inch. Well, you can't run the same cam profile in that. Or if you do, instead of going 10.5 plus, it's going to go about 8,500, 9,000 and start throwing
parts
up. And all the awesomeness inside these valve covers will come outside the valve covers. So what happens is the 4-cylinder, because of its torsional vibration in the crankshaft and in the camshaft, will excite the valve springs, excite the push rods, excite everything. So we have to make things smoother for these 4-cylinders, even though every component is exactly the same. It is literally, you could take that head right off of Jed Coughlin's car, put it right, or Erica's car, go over there, put it on the complementary car. You could not run the same cam profile.
You won't make it to the end of the track.
Right, you can. It just won't. You've either got to really short shift it and go ahead and put it in the clutch about 1,000 feet because it's not making to 1320.
Right.
Does that work in reverse?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
we see the smoother stuff. A V8 is a really nice situation from a camshaft as far as what's opening and closing. People will tell you that some of the V12s and V16s probably are a little bit easier, but a 4-cylinder is very hard. An odd fire V6 is extremely difficult.
Or a flat plane V8 like the new Corvette thing. It's
they do something totally different. From the valve train side, the flat plane crank is very, very easy. For everything that's bolted to the motor, it's like being on a paint shaker on steroids. If you go look at a parts list, look at the alternator for a GT350 Mustang. It's not the same alternator for a regular 5-liter
Even
Mustang.
that thing was getting shaken apart, huh?
No, I didn't say anything. Just look at the part numbers. Do a cross section and try to figure out, did Ford really want to design a different alternator for a GT350? But the hardest one, of course, is some of the like the V-twins and Pro Stock motorcycle. Sure. Because the front and rear cylinder on those do not do anything like the same.
They're so bad they want to tear up the dyno that you're trying to test them on.
Yeah, the AVL people have, AVL, we've talked about them several times. Amazing company, some of the smartest people I've ever dealt with. But even they will tell you that, man, that thing is hard to test.
It's evil.
Yeah, it's evil.
A lot of the guys that do, I always tell it in seminars to guys, that's how's the best way to balance a Harley. Mm-hmm. I said, well, that's easy, buy a Honda. You have to understand the nature of the beast is such that it has unique properties that, quite frankly, it's unique to the application. No two are the same, RPM bands, everything about it, cylinder pressures. But once you find the sweet spot, then you're golden until someone changes the power perspective, right? Yeah. So it's all of us. That's what's really nice about this whole gig, by the way, is that, God, with the expertise that we've had on these different panels, the end user, you got to understand. Just think about how many opportunities to visit with one of these guys individually. Look how much time you can replay this stuff. Mm-hmm. If you didn't quite get it, roll it back. Right. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and the wife threw you out of the room. Get back on the TV.
and that's the main thing. We want them to benefit from what's being said here and learned, and that's all about the educational process. And anytime I go into an account or speak with a customer over the phone, I go into way too much detail sometimes, and sometimes it leads to be boring. But I want them to know how to use the product in order to be successful. Sure. If they don't know how to use it, they're going to go right back to their old habits, right. Just like with honing or anything else.
Yep. Well, and the thing is, like making that step, like you said, with the cost differential and it sounding different,
it's
and all
tremendous.
These things, it's a big step. But I also know that a lot of us are all in the same engine builder Facebook groups and stuff.
Yeah.
Once they try it, they never look back. They're like, "I wish I'd done that 5 years ago."
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. And they'll say that a lot with my CBN rod and main cap wheel, because it cuts such a perfect finish on the main cap or the rod cap, so you stick it back in, it registers tighter. So when it registers tighter after the first torque, the ID value stays.
Right.
So after they cut their 3 off the caps or 2 off the caps or whatever they want, and they can go back in after they line hone and go ahead and assemble, they can do it without fear of crunching the bearings size.
Right.
So and they say, well, I wished you would have had this 20 years ago. I'm like, well, I've had it for 5.
Right. You have it now, okay?
I didn't have it.
You can't change the past.
And it's just such it's one of those great products that it's a no-brainer.
Right. That's cool.
All right, just a couple of minutes remaining. Roundtables, I always like a final thought on the topic. So, Martin, why don't you start off? Since you reinvented yourself and are now, it looks like, right in the middle of kind of reaping the benefits from that reinvention. There are probably a lot of people that would love to reinvent themselves and think about, how can I be really good 5 years from now? So what do you think about it?
It's taken a lot of time, and of course my education was with my previous employer of 33 years, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about people. I've networked with a lot of people through the years, so whenever I started coming back, it's like, well, where have you been? Well, now I'm redoing it. Now I'm doing it for myself. So I had to start all over and grab my blueprints and do my formulas and work with other manufacturers in order to get what I want. So naturally, I had testers all over the country. So by getting broad-based testing and not just my own results, I want everybody else on board to see if they're seeing the same things. But I mainly come back because I didn't have to come back. What I always enjoyed about what I was doing, and I loved my job where I was at, I loved educating people. I don't want people to struggle in the shops. If I can give them knowledge to help their application and do hands-on with them or over the phone, my phone line's always open. So that's what I think people like working with me, because I'm hands-on. I got my own shop, so I know my way around the shop. I know what they're doing.
You can speak the same language.
I can speak the same language, and surface finish or honing caps or cutting caps or whatever. They understand what I'm saying because of my background.
Excellent. Randy?
Well, real quick, I want to take something from our good friend Warren Johnson. He made a statement that our industry now has the opportunity to take the young up and coming to move into a status where they're going to make as much income as a doctor. That's how unique this trade is becoming. the technology, the hardware, the knowledge transfer is such that this is now a great industry to be in. And for the young, you need to really start listening in or contact us directly. Call us. We'll tell you the story. We'll send you in the right direction. But, man, opportunity is knocking. The question is whether you want to answer the door.
Billy?
You know, so much what we've all talked about, you know, none of us learned this in a vacuum.
Right.
You know, every bit what we know about the 4-cylinder versus 8-cylinder, what we know about the V-twins, what we know about crank stiffness and trying not to add harmonics, we learned this working with other people. So one thing I would highly recommend is to, you know, if you're interested in this industry, is build relationships. Be willing to ask questions. Don't be shy about it. You know, talk to people. Value this. You know, a lot of the friendships I've had for 20 plus years. And the relationships in this industry, we all do this passionately because we care about it. We love what we do. You know, we don't go to a job because this is a work. This is our passion. So be willing to, you know, invest in relationships, reach out to people, ask questions, be patient, treat people with respect. Over time, you'll build an amazing network of people, and this is the reason we support this expo so much is because we believe this is the type forum where you can start building those relationships.
Excellent. Ben?
So I'm going to build on that. You know, I think as those of us that have been around for a little while, and me less than others, you know, I was giggling when Randy pointed at Billy and said, "This young man over here," you know, and then Billy's looking at me and I'm like, "Hang on a minute." Oh, sorry, Ed.
Keep going that direction.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway,
Like I said, it all runs downhill.
I would have kept going.
If we're serious about expanding the industry, though, we got to shift the mentality that's been around for so long that everything in motorsports is this top secret, unshareable thing. And more than anything, the thing that technology has changed for the whole globe in the last couple of years is this virtual online access. Now we can build relationships on the internet. I can send you a private message. I can, you know what I mean? It used to be you had to go to a trade show and shake a hand or show up at a racetrack and you had 700,000 miles on the airlines or whatever. But one of the advantages that we have now is to be able to share this kind of information in a broad spectrum to a whole new audience of people that are totally ready to embrace the technology that's available. And so as long as we keep sharing this stuff, you talked yesterday about, you know, I'm embarrassed about my 2017 camshaft versus what I'm doing today. And that's great because there's still people that are using your 2012 camshafts too, you know, and so getting them up to speed and saying, hey, it's not as much of a secret as it used to be, and having this platform to share it on a global scale is really the key to how we start at the ground and get those young guys in and make the relationship available to them that didn't used to be.
Excellent. Mr. Kiebler?
Probably my big thing is what I love about this format is you know, I'm around all of these guys and they're all experts in their field, and I learn so much, and you come to something like this and you realize I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, honestly.
Right.
Okay. And so everybody watching this, and you can replay this anytime you want, this is a wonderful opportunity to educate yourself in the privacy of your own home. You know, how many times have we all done seminars where there's 50, 60 people in the room, and there's all these questions, but they're all afraid to ask.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they're afraid they're going to embarrass themselves.
Oh, you get done. Any questions? Nothing.
Crickets.
Crickets. Then the moment you start packing up, they all rush at you because no one wanted to ask the question and be the idiot in the group. That's right.
Right.
So,
Right. You know, and I really believe, especially an old gray hair like me, okay, my sole job before I retire is to try to convey that knowledge that I've learned over 47 years in this business and built all these friendships. And you know, I learned a ton from Martin today, okay, and yesterday. I've learned... This guy and Billy are just like, you know, I mean, I can't absorb it all, okay, all of the knowledge. But it makes me, but it makes me a better person also. I have this theory: leave people better off than when you met them.
Yep.
Okay, and I can go into a shop and say, you know, guys over there grinding caps. Man, you ought to try one of Martin's new wheels. It's killer, you know. Or have you ever thought about a New Balancer, or you know, talk to Billy Godbold, or I don't know how many times I've told guys, you got anything you need knowledge about on EFI, this
Call
is
Benny.
the man. Okay, so I just love this format.
Excellent, and we do too. That's
Yes.
why Engine Performance Expo in its 3rd edition here at the start of 2022, everybody is so excited about it, and we've got a long way to go, culminating with the big reveal on the dyno of the LS engine, Lake, but the roundtables continue to be one of the best parts of the Engine Performance Expo.
Oh yeah, it's the unscripted. Just you have no idea, right? No one gets prepared. No one knows what we're going to talk about before we do, and we just
Right.
let it go.
Right.
And like Ben said, there's little nuggets that get dropped in here, and that's what's going to hopefully inspire that thought and try to make things, keep moving forward.
Inspire, leave people better off than they were when you got them, as best
Right.
as you can. All great advice. Time to move on.
Yes, sir.
We are going to throw it out to, let's dig deeper. Lake, tell us where we're going.
So me and Keith Jones are going to be talking about the difference between crosshatch angle and surface finish, because a lot of times that you can get the two kind of mixed up. So who better than Mr. Keith Jones to educate us on the difference between crosshatch angle and surface finish?
What a day, what a day, what a day. Yeah, my brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars. We are not going to listen.